The silence in our bedroom stretched unnaturally, like a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap. My fingers gripped the edge of the dresser, knuckles whitening as I stared at the bed. Sheets slightly disheveled, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne clinging to the fabric. My stomach twisted, a sick realization unfurling inside me like a storm cloud. An hour ago, I'd walked into the house expecting warmth, the familiar comfort of home. Instead, laughter echoed down the hallway, hers, lilting, carefree. A sound I once adored, now a dagger sliding between my ribs. She had no idea I was back early. I moved soundlessly, each step calculated. The door, left ajar, granted me a view I never should have witnessed. Her body sprawled across our bed, legs tangled with his hand on her waist, lips brushing her neck. They reveled in the betrayal, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond the threshold. A burning heat rushed through my veins. Rage, hurt, disgust. Every emotion battled for dominance, but I remained still, absorbing the scene like a slow, torturous poison. My world crumbled, yet neither of them noticed. Then she turned, eyes bright with mischief, meeting mine as if I were nothing more than a shadow in the corner of the room. Amusement flickered across her face before she laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that shattered something deep within me. That was it. The moment I ceased to be the man she once claimed to love, the moment I became something else entirely. I didn't speak, didn't lash out. Instead, I stepped forward, one deliberate movement at a time, letting my silence unnerve them. She shifted, a sliver of hesitation creeping into her expression. He, on the other hand, remained smug, an arrogant smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. My gaze dropped to the bed, where a single item lay waiting, something I had placed there long before either of them stumbled in. Her laughter died instantly. Color drained from her face. Breath hitched. Now she understood. Now she knew. I smiled. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps, her once confident smirk erased by the sight before her. The sheets barely covered her body, but modesty was the least of her concerns now. He, the man who dared to take my place, sat up, muscles tensing, eyes darting between me and what lay on the bed. A single photograph. A snapshot of them, wrapped in each other's arms, lips locked in a forbidden kiss. The timestamp in the corner left no room for denial. Evidence of their deception, captured in perfect clarity. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, fingers hovering before pulling back, as if the image itself burned. I let the silence stretch, relishing the shift in the atmosphere. The arrogance had drained from the room, replaced by thick, suffocating dread. He was the first to speak. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Oh, enlighten me. What does it look like? His throat bobbed. He glanced at her, searching for support, but she was frozen, pupils blown wide with fear. You don't understand, she finally whispered. Let's talk. Talk? I echoed, stepping closer. You had plenty of time to talk. While I was working, while I was building a future for us, you were busy doing this. I gestured toward the bed, the sheets still wrinkled with the imprint of their betrayal. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had nothing to say, no defense. I turned my attention to him. Tell me something. Was it worth it? His jaw tightened. Look, man, Was it worth it? My voice dropped to a whisper, dangerous, controlled. He shifted, muscles coiling like a predator sensing danger. But he was trapped. There was nowhere to run. A slow smirk crept onto my face as I reached into my pocket. Both of them flinched, anticipating something far worse than what I pulled out. A small USB drive. I tossed it onto the bed beside the photo. That's for you, I told her. A gift. Her fingers curled into the sheets. What is it? I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough to make her shiver. Proof. Of everything. You see, I didn't just find out today. I've known for weeks. Her pupils dilated. A choked gasp slipped from her lips. He stiffened. You. I cut him off with a raised hand. Don't bother. Your part in this is over. You'll regret ever stepping foot in my house. His cocky demeanor cracked. Panic crept into his eyes. He didn't know what was on that drive, but he knew enough to fear it. She, on the other hand, reached for it hesitantly, like touching it might seal her fate. Watch it, I told her. Then we'll talk. With that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving them drowning in uncertainty. The real game had just begun. The weight of the moment pressed down on them long after I left the room. I didn't need to stay and watch them fumble through their panic. I had already won the first round. My footsteps echoed down the hallway, deliberate, slow, savoring the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same for them again. Downstairs, the night stretched around me, silent except for the steady rhythm of my heartbeat. I poured a drink, the amber liquid swirling in the glass as I listened. I imagined her fingers trembling as she plugged the USB into her laptop, her breath hitching, his curses slipping past clenched teeth. The footage would tell them everything, weeks of betrayal, captured in perfect clarity. Every hotel room, every stolen touch, every whispered promise they thought would remain their secret, their lust immortalized on screen. But that wasn't the worst of it. No, the real nightmare was buried deeper in those files. A second folder, hidden beneath the weight of their shame. One click. That was all it would take for her world to collapse completely. Upstairs, a sharp cry shattered the silence. Not from pain, not from anger. Pure, unfiltered terror. I smiled. Then came the footsteps, frantic, stumbling. The sound of her bare feet against the hardwood as she rushed down the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled, face pale, chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. You... Her voice cracked, horror dripping from every syllable. How did you... I lifted my glass. Did you enjoy the show? She staggered forward, hands shaking. What the hell have you done? I took a slow sip, savoring the burn. Exposed the truth. Her eyes darted around, searching for some escape, some way to undo what had already been set in motion. You've been following me. I let the silence stretch. Tears welled at the corners of her eyes. You were supposed to be working late. I laughed, the sound hollow. And you were supposed to love me. She flinched. A second set of footsteps thundered down the stairs. He appeared behind her, jaw clenched, face tight with fury. You're out of your mind, he spat. I tilted my head. Am I? He jabbed a finger toward me. You had someone follow us. You recorded us. That's sick. I exhaled slowly, setting my glass down. You slept with another man's wife. In his house. In his bed. Tell me again who's sick. His nostrils flared, fists tightening at his sides. I should... Should what? I interrupted, my voice deceptively calm. Hit me? Try it. For a moment he considered it. I saw the war behind his eyes, the need to reclaim some semblance of power. But I wasn't the same man he'd been mocking in my own home. I was something else now, and he knew it. His hand twitched but didn't move. Coward. I turned my attention back to her. Have you checked your phone yet? Her brows furrowed. What? I gestured toward the counter. Go ahead, pick it up. She hesitated, then snatched it. The moment her screen lit up, the blood drained from her face. Her lips parted, a strangled gasp escaping as she scrolled through message after message. What did you do? I leaned back, satisfied. Just a little insurance. The messages weren't just sent to her. They were sent to everyone. Her friends, her family, her colleagues. Every single person in her life now had access to the very files she had just watched. Her legs wobbled. The phone slipped from her grip, clattering against the floor. Oh my God! The weight of reality crashed over her, crushing, suffocating. She had laughed in my face. Now she couldn't even breathe. She collapsed onto the floor, her hands gripping the edge of the counter as if the world had tilted beneath her. Shallow breaths, trembling fingers, wide, unseeing eyes. She was unraveling. And I watched, unsympathetic. He stood frozen beside her, his own face pale, the arrogance, the confidence, gone. He wasn't smirking now, no bravado left to cling to. He grabbed her arm, shaking her roughly. "Tell me you can fix this. Tell me there's a way out." Her lips moved, but no sound came. I exhaled, slow, measured, savoring the moment. "There's no fixing this." She jerked her head toward me, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Please." Her voice was hoarse, broken. "You don't have to do this." I arched an eyebrow. "Do what? Hold you accountable? Let the world see you for who you really are?" I let the words sink in before adding, "I gave you everything." You threw it away. A sob tore from her throat. "I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I tilted my head. "Didn't mean for it?" I gestured toward the discarded USB, the photo still lying on the bed upstairs, the phone glowing with the aftermath of my revenge. "Every time you touched him, every time you kissed him, lied to me, walked through our front door after being with him, you meant for it." She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry." "Sorry?" I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping. "You're sorry because you got caught. That's not regret, that's panic." The man beside her let go abruptly, as if touching her might make things worse for him. He took a step back, rubbing his face, muttering curses under his breath. "I need to go." She whipped around. "What?" His lips curled in disgust. "I'm not going down with you." Her breath hitched. You're just going to leave?" He scoffed. "You think I'm going to lose everything because of this?" His tone dripped with contempt. "I have a reputation, a career. I can't—" Her slap echoed through the kitchen, a sharp crack that sent his head snapping to the side. Tears streamed down her face. "You promised me." He wiped his mouth, eyes darkening. "You were just a distraction." The words hit her harder than any physical blow could have. I watched, unaffected, as she broke apart in real time. The realization that she had destroyed everything for a man who didn't even love her. It was poetic. He turned to me, jaw clenched. "Delete it." "All of it." I smiled. "No." A muscle ticked in his cheek. He understood now. He wasn't in control. Without another word, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. She let out a shuddering breath before collapsing to her knees. "Please, I'll do anything." I crouched in front of her, lifting her chin with a single finger. She flinched. "Anything?" I murmured. She nodded rapidly, desperate. I leaned in, so close she could feel my breath on her trembling lips. For a fleeting moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Then I whispered the only answer she would get. "No." I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. Behind me, the sound of her sobs filled the empty house. She had laughed in my face. Now she could choke on the wreckage of everything she had destroyed.